Okay, welcome to the H-Frame podcast. Today we have a special guest, my old college girlfriend, Mimi Davis, who is the site director. Is that the right term for the new show called Yellowstone, starring Kevin Costner, and it's a kind of a big underground hit. And we're going to talk about that and other things and how she got into this business of filming and site locations and quite an adventurous life you've had, Mimi. Good to have you.
You too.
Yeah. Um, so tell us how you got started in, you're not really a professional site director. You started out, you were a swimmer, right? You were a high school swimmer in Redlands, California. Where's Redlands?
Yep. Redlands is in the Inland Empire out of by San Bernardino in Southern California, out towards Palm Springs. People have heard of that more than San Bernardino. But yeah.
So you went to high school there and you were a swimmer and you had to go to a college because you wanted to be a college swimmer. And how did you choose Chico State? And
a friend of mine, Kristen, who went to Redlands also, she got accepted to Chico, and I knew Chico from my sister went to school there. So I'd go up and visit her when I was little, and she's 10 years older than I am. And so, my dad called the coach and, got me in basically through swimming, and then went up there and went to Chico, and it was the best thing ever, I think. I feel like.
Okay. And that's where we met, right? We met on the newspaper. What do you remember about the Chico State Orion? You remember we worked together, and I guess we met there on Tuesday nights because the next day the paper came out and everybody was on a deadline. Do you remember those days?
Oh yeah, going out. I didn't do it the first semester, but the next one I did. And that's where it became fun. And I figured out, I went through school not knowing I majored in accounting and then dropped that the first semester and then had nothing. And then Dr. Eck, I had a photojournalism class with him.
Okay.
And so he said, and that's our mutual.
Okay, we met through Dr. Eck, right? Dr. Richard Eck. And we worked on a newspaper. And back then it was, before the digital age, and you were the photographer, and you actually had to develop your own film. What do you remember about that?
I remember the deadlines being tough with that, because you had to go take the photos and then run back to the office, go in the dark room, develop them, and pray that you had something that would work for what he needed. And
I remember the smell of that dark room. You remember that?
Yeah.
And we put that sign, the Orgasmatron, on it because it looked like the Woody Allen film. And we had a lot of fun there, and we'd have pizza and everything. But Tuesday night was a lot of pressure. Do you remember that? I remember I had a column and it got edited, and I had to make sure it was fit in there, and everybody was under pressure. And I think those days were kind of fun because we really had to work with a finished product, and then the next day it came out, the newspaper.
And that was the best thing, because then you get to see it, and it was exciting to see it all happen.
And how did you develop that film? Was it what kind of chemicals did you use for somebody who doesn't remember
first you had to put it in the little canister, and then the developer, right? And you shook, just sit there and you did it slowly, developing the film. And then you did it, and then you went into the dark room and did the same thing, but you had to do it with the prints, so you did.
Yeah.
And then put it each one. So each one you're like, overexposed, throw it away, underexposed, throw it away, and start over again. Until, there was a process and the times and all that too. But then also, like you said, you had to make sure you had the right size. So then I develop it, make the print, and it'd be too big. So then you'd have to go and do another one or cut it,
What was the smell of that dark room? What do you remember the smell of that?
Acetone. I don't know. It was like acetone. Probably walked out of there pretty high. I don't
know. Okay. And then we met there, and we had some fun, with Matt Olmstead. We met Matt there, who's now a big Hollywood star. He's a big script writer. He did Prison Break, and now he's doing the Chicago Fire, which is big in Poland.
Is it? Nice.
Yeah, I see. It's funny. I see the commercials on TV, and it's and I talked to Matt recently. We did a big conference call, and it was nice. So Matt, and then Joe Prax, I remember, who lived in North Pole, Alaska, I think. Do you remember that? Or South Pole? Do you remember where he lived? Anyway.
I don't remember where he lived, but I just remember I think I was one of the youngest. You guys were older, and I was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
younger
Yeah.
of the group
Yeah.
there. You guys were seniors.
Yeah. And do you remember how you want to say anything about Dr. Eck? Because he was
Yeah,
very,
he's
yeah. Yeah.
he's the one that got me into photojournalism. I took his class, and then he went, Mimi, why don't you always take the right picture. You're always angled right. You just a natural see it, how you're
Uh-huh.
supposed to take the photo. Why don't
Uh-huh.
you major in photojournalism? I go, there's a course? And he goes, no, but you could make it up. So I did my own special major and I made up my own class. I did all the research and I wrote it out and I had to go in front of a board and everything at Chico and made up my own major.
And
So
photojournalism. You were a
and
photojournalism
photojournalism,
major.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
people could follow afterwards. They could go and follow it and they could change it if they wanted to. But
So you were a real trailblazer at
I
Chico.
was for
Yeah.
photojournalism. I loved it. Yeah,
And you also went on exchange to Baltimore, Maryland.
I
What
did.
made you do that?
So I had to take a couple of other courses that they didn't have at Chico. So I
Yeah.
had color photography 1 and color photography 2
Yeah.
and another journalism class. So because it wasn't set up for that, those classes I had to take somewhere else. So I went on
Yeah.
exchange for a year, and it was
Yeah.
only supposed to be for the first semester, but then
Yeah.
I loved it out there and stayed.
And you worked at Phillips. That restaurant is still there, right? In Inner Harbor, is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Yeah. And
I couldn't believe I
yeah.
made like $100 cash a day, and I couldn't believe it. I'd be like, look at, because that back then that was a lot of money walking around with cash, $100, that you made, or 200.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this is awesome.
And I went the next year to Delaware, and I remember you came out to visit, and I remember Chrissy Kunkel was there, right? She was a
Huh?
nanny, is that right? And
Yes.
I remember we went to Calvert Street Cafe, and it was the first time I ever saw a dead guy in the street. It was a homicide.
Oh my
She can probably tell you that story, But anyway, it was Baltimore was tough. That's before they started filming Homicide there, but and The Wire, that.
Yeah, The Wire. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you came back, and I lived with you guys. I lived with 3 swimmers. Do you remember that? What do you remember that? Because
Yeah.
I needed a place to live, and you said, "Oh, we just lost a roommate. Why don't you live
Susan and Betsy and I.
yeah, on La Vista, right? That was the name of
Yes.
the place." And I lost your dog. Have you forgiven me for that?
I know. Bandit. She was a
Yeah.
good dog, but she needed to run. So
Yeah.
somebody hopefully got her that really, really liked to run.
I think I told John that it's okay to open the gate, and John opened the gate, and that was the last we saw of your dog. I
It
was
was a lacrosse tournament over in the field over
yeah.
there, and that's where she disappeared. Someone took her.
I'm really apologize. All these years later, sorry
I
about that.
forgot that you did that. I would have never. I would always thought it would have been me that let her out.
Okay, all right. We were probably
It was
out late, and
you
yeah.
and
That dog,
Gary. Remember Gary?
Gary,
Oh,
poor Gary. We got Gary at the pound, and we brought him home, and he had parvo. Remember that?
yeah.
You know,
That was horrible. That was horrible.
you
But you
cried. I
guys would
remember.
take. Remember Tim would take Gary
Yeah,
just down to the main thing at Chico at the school and pick up chicks. He's like, what a chick magnet this
yeah.
Gary is.
What I remember is we got another dog because we kept going back to the pound to get these dogs, and we got Lenny, who was a Dalmatian. And do you remember Lenny? He brought a live rabbit into the house.
Oh
Because
God.
he was a wild dog. I mean, he was
Yeah.
really like wild dog, and we were just watching TV, and he just brought a rabbit into the house and dropped it on the floor.
And
And-
it was big. It was a
yeah,
big rabbit.
yeah, and he just caught it, and he was so proud of himself. And then but we lived across from a sorority, and they put those pink spots on him. Do you remember
It was
that?
it was a fraternity,
A
and they
fraternity.
took
Okay.
his leash. He had a choker collar because he would attack dog when he grew up. He was stuck to a chain, and
Yeah.
the post office guy would kick him. And also they had a little pup. They had a little dog, so he hated little dogs and people in uniform.
Yeah.
And so I had to put that collar on him because he'd pull me if he saw a cat or a dog or something
I
small.
I remember we named him Lenny because Tom Brasher or something. He had
Oh,
some.
that's right. It was his favorite.
Yeah.
What was it? Lenny. I love that name. I still.
Yeah, we called him Lenny, and I missed Lenny. He just had a mind of his own. And he would just disappear for 2 days, and somebody would call from clear across town. Do you have a dog named, like with spots on them? So okay. So let's get to your personal life a little bit. Uh, you liked swimming, and that's you have to get up at 5 in the morning to train,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
and
don't know how I did it because I can't do it now.
you were the captain of the swim team, right? Yeah.
I was, yep. two
And what
years.
and what kind of responsibility was that?
I guess just making sure everybody is, I was more the cheerleader type, making
Yeah.
sure everyone was okay and happy and that we're going to get through, like cheering through the games and stuff. And our,
And
just,
I
then
remember,
there's more serious ones.
and
I had co-captains.
you really had a lot of responsibility then, because I remember you would swim in the morning, then you go to class, then you worked in the cafeteria, or you were a cook at the sandwich uh, patch, right? That's what it was called.
Sandwich, yeah.
And I got you into trouble. Do you remember that
Oh, I
story?
remember. Yeah, we used to have competitions. Me and my friend Betsy worked there, or Gina. That's where I met Gina. Worked there, and
Yeah.
we'd have sandwich competitions, and who can make the biggest sandwiches. And I got
Yeah.
caught with my
Okay.
my
Yeah.
boss Cheryl. They started measuring. They started weighing the meat after that. No more free piles of meat on the sandwich.
And I remember you got me a job there, and I was the fry cook, and I remember back there making chicken and hamburgers for the people, and that was a good job though. I could listen to
It
the
was.
radio. Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember the pass that we would get? And you'd
yeah.
get free food on that. So you'd get fed, not only
Oh,
fed, you could eat while you were there.
we,
That was
I,
a perfect job.
I used to work in the grill from 4 to 8, and about 7:45, I'd put like 5 chickens on there, and I'd say, "Well, I guess nobody's gonna come in and have to take these home." Like I probably gained about 15 pounds doing that job. So and we went to a couple of concerts. Do you remember we saw the Grateful Dead, and we saw Bob Dylan? Do you remember those? We went down
I
there
remember
to
that. Yeah, with the Bob Dylan, the Pogues opened up. And I think that's who I really wanted to see. And
yeah,
the lead singer got arrested, and they had another singer come in, but he was just as good. And it was fantastic.
yeah.
But then when Bob Dylan came on, I think I was exhausted. I just fell asleep
I
because
remember
we were on the grass. It was perfect.
it
Just
was the
sleep on
grass.
the
It was
grass.
at the Berkeley Greek Theater. I remember I said, "Mimi, Bob Dylan's on," and you said, "Yeah." And he started out with "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue," and you were out. Because well, we had a full day. I remember driving down there. It was a long day,
Yeah.
and then we saw the Grateful Dead at the shoreline, and I took my brother, and my brother's a house builder, and he's not really the Grateful Dead type of guy, but he says, "If I go down there, you're working for me at 6 in the morning, right?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll go to the Grateful Dead show, and we're gonna build the house tomorrow," because it was an important house. I mean, I know Joe, he's a responsible guy. And I said, "If I don't wake up at 6 o'clock, you can give me a hot foot," which is like you put a match on somebody's toes, and he did.
Oh,
And I always remember that. But anyway, those were fun days, and it's great to see you again and reminisce about that. So maybe we'll
yeah.
talk about your professional career. How did you get into the film business?
So it's funny, like, so Chico, again, going to Chico, a friend of mine, Peter Dacey, went back to Utah where his
Uh-huh.
parents were after we graduated in 1990. He went
Uh-huh.
back home and he got on a production company, a small production company. He majored in film.
Hmm.
And he came down in the summer to Palm Springs. I was house sitting and I'm like, could I do it? Can I be a driver? Because that's what I had to do for swimming. Being a captain, you had to drive the van. So that
Yeah.
was another responsibility that you had. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
could be a driver. I'll
Yeah.
drive. And, and what is there? What do you do? And so he's just like, I'll try and get you on. And so we went to Alaska for for salmon season. And
Yeah.
I got a call and he said, hey, I can get you on. I think I can get you on this next show. It's Ancient Secrets of the Bible. They did a lot of stuff for CBS. Remember back in the day, they did a lot
Yeah.
of Bible
Yeah.
stuff. And so he said, come be here on September 9th for the David Burns concert so you can meet the producers. Like
You mean
that's how fun it was. And I'm like,
David Byrne from
from
Talking
Talking
Heads?
Head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
I left Alaska, flew down, drove across to Utah, not knowing what I was doing, and got met the producers, got the job, and was a
Yeah.
driver for them for 6 months or so
Is
for
this
their little
is
show.
this the year I worked in Alaska, or was it the next year? Uh,
I thought
Maybe it's the same year, but
I think it's the same year. Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
worked there the second year. I was
yeah,
there the first season. I did
yeah,
2 seasons. So this
yeah,
is after I came back from traveling, after I
yeah.
traveled for a
That's
year.
right. You went around the world, and we'll talk about that too. You went around the world. I went to Europe, and you went the other way. Do you remember that?
I went to Asia.
I
Yeah,
have,
I went to
you know, in my
around the
box,
Pacific.
in my box here, I have a lot of letters from you because I always kept my letters, and it's really funny. These letters that I'm in Indonesia, and it's really great, or and I would get them. I got some in the American Express because I was in Europe. You would send them to me, and I would
Oh,
get them in those days. That was really fun to look at those. And
isn't
I
that
have to,
crazy about that?
and before we get onto your career, I have to ask you about your car, your Volkswagen. Now,
Mm.
that's a piece of art, and I have a photo of that, and we'll try to get it. Carol can probably find it. But how did how did your car, Life as a Beach, how did that come out?
So back in school, I took a film
Yeah,
class. So we needed to make a move. I needed to make a movie,
yeah,
and I just bought that Bug. It's a '63 Volkswagen Bug, and
yeah,
it was kind of the paint was fading. So it was 20 years
yeah,
old back then, and so
yeah,
it so I needed to paint it. And Tracy Wyatt, my roommate, was she could paint. She
yeah,
was a designer, so she penciled the colors and everything. It was almost like paint by numbers.
yeah, yeah.
And I made this movie of it being painted. And so that's where it became the beach scene on the side and where's the beach and the glasses and everything. And I still have it. I still have the car
You
and I
still
need
have
to
the
move.
car? You're
I still
kidding.
have it.
That's
It's
like
down in
Ken.
my old house that I just sold. So now I got to figure out what to do with it.
That's like Ken Kesey's bus. You still have that car? That car was old when I was driving around in it. And do you remember Nick, the dog, the black Labrador? What do you remember about Nick, the 150-pound Labrador Retriever? That was
He
Matt's
didn't
dog.
like to be alone. He did not
No,
like to be alone. So
he
if you
could get
left
out
him
of any
alone,
house. Yeah, yeah. And do you
he'd
remember
break
that?
the window. He'd jump through windows to get out.
But he had the greatest last year of his life because the Olmsted, the parents said, we can't handle Nick. So do you guys want to take him? And we took him into our college apartment on Magnolia there. And he loved it so much. He had such a great time. Do you remember he got into the newspaper? We took his picture and
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
loved it. And he was an overweight Labrador, but he hated to be alone. And if he was alone, he would find a way out of any building. It didn't matter. He would find.
Busting right through the window. He just bust right through the window.
And we got that new roommate, and he ate the guy's birthday cake. Nick could eat anything. He could eat through a chili can. Like he was amazing. He was the most amazing animal ever. So we'll try to find a photo of Nick. So, okay, so let's get back to your career. And you ended up working on the scene of Dumb and Dumber. Now tell us about that. Was that your first movie?
That was my first big movie. That
Okay.
with the big actors and everything. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
wait a minute. No, I did another one, Avenging Angel, with a that was big, and then
Okay.
Dumb and Dumber came in.
Okay.
So
So tell us about it if you're somebody like me and I don't know what a site director does. What is your job? What do you do?
so back then I was just learning. So I was a location assistant, and so a scout basically. I'd go and scout. I loved it. I love scouting. That's my favorite. So you read the script. And I didn't know when I was reading it what I was getting myself into. Can you imagine reading the script and not knowing who the characters, these characters are?
Yeah.
They were trying to get Jim Carrey. They already had Jeff
Daniels. Yeah.
Daniels, and then they were trying to get Jim Carrey, who just finished Ace Ventura.
Uh-huh.
So I knew it was supposed to be funny when I was reading the script.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like then and then the location wise, and so I just would go around and knock on doors. Sorry, my dog. Knock on
Okay.
doors and say, can we film a movie here? And finally, there was a couple that said yes.
What's your dog's name? Let's talk to her. Yeah, or him. Yeah.
Bella?
Let's see. Can
The
she?
youngest. This is Bella. She's a miniature Australian Shepherd.
Hi,
and
Bella. Boy,
she's
you handsome.
months old.
Or yeah. Or oh, I like her eyes. She's got one blue eye and one. Yeah, she's a yeah.
Yeah.
My brother had a blue heeler named Trip. Yeah, because he was always under his feet, and my brother was building houses, and he called him Trip, and that stayed. And he looks just like him. So, and that's a
Oh, nice.
girl, right? Is that a
Yeah,
girl?
this is a girl. Yep.
Hi, Bella.
Another-
Goodbye, Bella. Okay.
Bye, Bella. I've
You
got
can
another
you
one,
can bark. We
Lizzie.
can edit you out. It's okay. So
Okay, good.
okay, and we're getting back to Dumb and Dumber, and that's kind of a big movie because those are two big stars at the time, right?
Yeah, it was good. I didn't know what I was getting myself into with that one. They were, it was bigger money, bigger actors. They had to watch out, like more police on site because, people wanted to come and meet Jim Carrey and Jeff
Yeah.
Daniels. And it was so fun though. They,
And,
literally we're laughing on set. We're
and now
giggling.
Jim Carrey is kind of a, he's older now and he's kind of a joke now, some people think, but that was his peak of his career, right? I mean, that was when he was the
All
biggest
the Ace
comedy star.
Venturas and the
Yeah,
Dumb and
yeah,
Dumber. That's what, yeah,
yeah.
definitely got it.
And did you meet him on the set? Either of those two guys? Yeah,
Oh, both of them, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they're
because we were
nice guys.
constantly on set. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then, and then back then too, they were popular, but they were still nice, like they would
yeah,
talk to us and stuff and see
yeah.
us on set and talk and stuff. So
So,
always a good experience.
and it's a kind of an absurd movie, right? If you haven't seen this movie, it's about two guys who are really stupid, and there's a lot of memorable lines in there. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
Yeah.
And people remember that. And who was the female lead in that? But she was beautiful, and
Well, and
Lloyd.
then Jim Carrey and her started dating then. They started dating on that show. So
So
that was another
reality,
thing.
yeah,
So Jim Carrey would stay on set long. That's
yeah,
how I got to meet him and stuff, because he'd always be on set
yeah.
waiting for her
Oh,
to
but they were
to
nice though. They were nice,
oh
So,
yeah.
and you told me you drove the dog car, and what was that
The
like?
mutt
Yeah,
car.
the mutt
Yeah,
car.
I just had to move it around the corner. I wouldn't be able to go very far with it, but yeah. And it's crazy. Seeing that thing drive down the road, or it was parked at the hotel back at the time. It was a Holiday Inn that everyone
Yeah,
stayed at,
yeah,
and you could see it parked in the lot in the back. And so that was it's pretty funny because you can drive by on the main street on State Street, and then you'd
yeah.
see this mutt mobile, and nobody knew what it was, right? Because no one knew this movie
Sure.
yet until
Yeah.
it came out. And then
And and is
you
this in
realize
Park City or Salt Lake that you're talking
Salt
about?
Lake,
Okay.
Salt Lake.
So
We
why
did shoot some stuff in Park City, the
okay.
house, her house.
Okay. Yeah, her house that we don't know her name yet, but we're gonna remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so and also why would they film in
What is it?
Utah? Why is there a film industry in Utah? Because it's cheaper?
Her name's Lauren Holly, Lauren
Okay.
Harley. But
Apologies.
yeah, so Utah is a right to work state, so
Yeah.
non-union.
Yeah.
They were in Colorado filming, and I think the unions came, so they ran over to Utah to film
Hmm.
this in Utah
Hmm.
back in the day, back then. And so so we had to scramble for all the locations really quickly and stuff, but it worked out. I mean, as you can see, they thought Park City Main Street was supposed to be Colorado, because I think it was
Uh-huh.
set in Colorado, and then
Yeah,
they
it was
called
supposed to
that
be
when they're
Aspen, I
driving
think.
on the motorcycle.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was supposed to be Aspen, but I can't remember. It's
Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you. I only made it through half that movie, but but it's nice that you gotta, that's a good start. And then what was your second big movie? You did The Crow, right?
The Crow, I did two. The Crow 2 and The Crow 3.
And
Those
and
were like almost 5 years later. So I did some
okay,
other ones in between there, but those were the Independence Day was in there. There's some other ones
you,
that shot in Utah.
you did Independence Day. Oh, okay. Is that Will Smith
This is
and
just a small bit of getting out at well, not much. Let's not talk about that one that much. So,
okay.
because it's
What
really minor.
what about The Crow? Because that was a weird thing because Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son, had died on the first episode, and wasn't there talk about like a jinx or something or a curse?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
So
can you tell
everyone,
us
when we were shooting the second one, they were
can you tell us that story of the curse and all of that? Do you remember that?
3 or 4.
Yeah. Okay.
That well, they were worried that there was curses. I mean, but it was probably who they hired to be on set. It
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
crazy times back then.
And how did he die? Was it a blank gun or something? Or
Yeah, it was and it was a piece of a blank that actually
yeah.
shot
Yeah.
shot him
Yeah. That was
while they're
tragic.
doing a big. big scene.
So you worked on the sequel, and that was were people talking about it, how creepy it was that you're,
Yeah, the whole time. Yeah, and everywhere we went, when I scouted stuff, there were dead birds everywhere. Because you know how the
really?
crow had the thing that, yeah,
Yeah.
there'd be dead birds. But I think it's just what buildings we're in, empty buildings and stuff like
Okay.
that. But still, it
Okay.
was creepy. You're just like, oh,
Okay.
great, now I got to clean this up.
Okay. Well, I remember in college we went to see a movie called Field of Dreams, and I remember you cried, and I said, "Don't cry." And she goes, "Why not? It's a sad movie." And that was
It's a
Kevin
happy,
Costner.
sad movie. Happy, makes you
Yeah,
feel good.
I remember we saw a lot of movies. You always cried. You cried in Dead Poet Society. I remember that, and I said, "Don't cry. Why not? It's a sad movie." And then and then and then we saw Field of Dreams together, and then about 10 years later you ended up working with Kevin Costner on a movie. And what was that like? What was the movie? Yeah.
So it was down in Vegas. It was 3,000 miles to Graceland, where
Uh-huh.
there were like 10 Elvises at a Elvis competition, and they would
Yeah.
go. They were gonna. They made a plan to rob the casino
Uh-huh.
dressed as
Okay.
Elvis.
And Kevin
And
Costner was a
so
good guy? Yeah.
he was a great guy. I thought for sure that there was going to be like he would be high maintenance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
were down at the Fremont Street, which is the old part of Las Vegas,
Hmm.
and walking down Fremont Street. And after they cut, he went over and he signed everyone that was there. He signed all their autographs and got pictures with the police officers.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell was also in it, but he left the scene. He went back to his
Okay.
trailer. But Kevin Costner was there. He's
So
there for his fans.
and he's kind of like the guy he's in on the movies, I think. And we're going to get to Yellowstone here in a minute because I saw him interviewed about Yellowstone, and he seemed like a really decent guy. He said how he grew up and how he got into westerns, and he was the guy in the '80s. He did westerns when westerns were kind of dead, right? He did Silverado, and he did what did he did? The one about the OK Corral, my
Not Men
darling,
in Tights. No, I'm
my
kidding.
no, yeah. Well, he did that one too, but he did some westerns when westerns were sort of out of vogue, right? He did
Yeah.
My Darling Clementine, not the but the remake, the OK Corral thing, Wyatt Earp, I think it was called.
Oh, I was gonna say Wyatt Earp. Okay.
Yeah, and he did Silverado, and he kind of brought the western back when it wasn't really fashionable, and now he's doing something called Yellowstone, and you're the site director on that. And I have to tell you, my colleague Gary, who's a British guy, he says you have to watch this, and I said I've never heard of it, and so I watched it over the weekend, and I watched all 3 seasons, and I think it's the best television show I've seen in 15 years. And can you tell us a little bit about this show? Why is it? What about it?
Well,
What was your role in this? Yeah.
so for prior to Yellowstone coming to Utah, I was at the Film Commission working there for 11 years.
Yeah.
And there's Taylor Sheridan, who's the writer director,
Who's a great
came.
writer, by the way. I watched his interview too. Let's get to him in a minute, but he's
Yeah, so
yeah,
he
yeah,
came to
yeah,
Utah and did a movie called Wind River, and
yeah.
he goes, "Listen, I have a series, Yellowstone, that I've been holding on to, and I want to film it here
So
as well."
this is Taylor Sheridan telling you this, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll look at some locations for you and get and see what we can find, for this, for Yellowstone. So I took photos of what we have, kind of.
let's back up a little bit because I think Taylor Sheridan is an interesting case. He used to be an actor. He was on Sons of Anarchy, right?
Yes. And that's
And
how he met the producers that are on there that produce his show Yellowstone
so
and most of his movies.
it's kind of unusual that an actor would turn into a writer at that late in life. He said he was 40 and he just had a son and he had to make some more money, so he said I'm going to try writing. And he seems like a pretty down to earth guy. He was born in Texas, and now he lives in Wyoming. Is he as down to earth as he seems like on his interviews? Yeah.
No, he is. He's very down to earth and very passionate about his projects and stuff. And
Yeah.
and very, because he's an actor, he was an actor,
Yeah.
he knows how to talk to fellow actors and get the best performance out of them. And
Yeah.
he writes it for them. He writes that, he sees their character and writes what their ability is.
And
He's
he
amazing.
did this trilogy of westerns over the last I guess 5 years, right? And they were based on Indian reservations, and it was kind of I saw the the Indian reservation in Yellowstone, and I lived next to one when I was a kid in the summers up in Washington State, and he got it very realistic. He was really spot on that. And I know he said in the interview he spent some time at Pine Ridge in South Dakota, but he seemed to get the mood of this very accurately. Is that right? I mean, does he
Yeah.
seems like he
No, they
really
do a lot
captures.
of research. So the production designer, Ruth, researched everything, and then her people
Yeah,
they took and we had to they built that set. They actually
yeah.
built that reservation on a property, Rogers Ranch in Utah, just outside of Park City. And they
Uh-huh.
built it, so they took
Okay.
trailers and added them where they needed to go, and really
Okay.
made it
And
work. And it was
so he's a
amazing.
great writer, and he approached you, or you approached him. How did this relationship start? He's you told me that he said, "This is my treasure. I've been holding this back, and now I want to do it." Oh, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
He goes, well, now that Paramount took it, he got talking to Paramount. And so they took it and we're going to make it. And so that was because they were just opening this new station, their new
yeah.
online
I, I
channel.
I saw him on an interview today. Earlier, I was preparing for this conversation, and he said that the last film he did, Nick Cave was going to do the soundtrack, and he said to Nick Cave, "I don't want any whistles, and I don't want any stereotypical Indian music. I want it to be like a science fiction film." and he seems to be his own kind of person. This
Oh,
Sheridan, Taylor Sheridan, you know.
he is. So he wrote, directed, and edited the whole first season. But you
Yeah,
can't do that in a series because you need to take
yeah,
your episode kind of
yeah,
thing and be
yeah,
able to stop and go. But he directed the whole thing. So the second season, he did every other episode. So he was able to get
yeah,
some other directors in there. And
yeah,
and then writing wise, we would shut down so he could write and
yeah.
change things and then go back on.
So
And
So, if nobody's ever heard of Yellowstone, can we talk about it? It's Kevin Costner's the executive producer, right? And
yes.
what's it about? This, if nobody's ever seen Yellowstone, because I didn't hear of it until last week, so maybe we can explain it to our audience what it's about. It's set in Montana, right?
It's set in Montana, and now they did film 3 seasons in Utah, but now they're fully up in Montana to do
yeah,
the season
yeah,
4, and they just
yeah.
got picked up for season 5.
Okay.
But it's like they called it. What was the Ponderosa one? What's that one called? With
The Ponderosa, it was the Bonanza.
Bonanza. So
Yeah,
it's like a Dallas hits Bonanza.
I think it's Dallas, Bonanza, and The Godfather. But
Oh, and the
because
God, yeah,
I,
he's
I
definitely the Godfather,
because
right? He's
I think Jamie is Tom Hagen. I could tell that I texted my friend Gary, who's British, and I said, I guarantee you this guy watched Dallas on Friday nights at 10 o'clock when he was a kid. Because it's exactly the same, like so, but it's great. It's really, he even have a cliffhanger like who shot JR now,
Yeah, yeah. What's happening there? We're like all stuck in the whole shootout, right?
we don't know. We only know Kevin Costner's cell phone saved him. His smartphone saved him because the bullet
I
hit
thought
the
there was
smartphone.
no oh yeah, that's right. And then there's no service. Oh, we shouldn't tell too many. People
Okay,
have got to
yeah, we
watch
don't want to spoil it. Yeah, okay.
it. You
But
got
the
to watch it.
characters are great. The characters like Rip and Beth. Can you tell us about them? You told me that you were at their
Oh,
the
I can
yeah.
tell you about their cabin. Remember, I
Yeah.
do locations. I don't write
o-
the characters, but I do
Okay.
locations for
But
them.
let's talk a little bit about the characters. Rip is the right-hand man and he's kind of the enforcer, right? He's like the
Yep.
guy that does the business. He does the dirty work and he has a troubled childhood and
Yep.
he's the man of the ranch, right? And
Yep.
Beth is the farmer's daughter, a little bit beautiful, but she's also very ruthless. But they just got married. I shouldn't say this probably if you haven't seen it, but in the cabin, you told me that you were the site director for the cabin. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a cabin that we used. So back in '95, I worked on a TV series called Extreme Rescue,
Uh
and they
huh.
built this cabin out at Thousand Peaks Ranch
Uh
in
huh.
Oakley.
Uh huh.
And that's the cabin that they used they decided to keep it. The owners
Okay.
kept the cabin. And so
Yeah.
we filmed multiple things there, but it ended up being Rip's cabin
Okay.
for the scene. And so now, they didn't get married. She asked him to marry.
That's right. Yeah.
Her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that the proposal happened there.
Yeah.
And
And and Beth is British, right? Yeah.
yep,
She's a British actress, and she does a pretty good job at that. The American accent, and she's very believable in this character. Yeah.
she's so nice. So I back when I was doing locations, you do a lot of other things as well, right? So I
Uh-huh.
would park people in the right to get them in the parking lot and make sure that they're where they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
And because we have 300, you got like 100 cars that you need to park, and then
Yeah.
trailers and trucks and everything. And so she looked different. She had a hat on or something, and she
Yeah.
pulls up and I'm like, yep, just park right down here at the end. And she's like, normally I park a little closer to the trailers. And I looked at her, I'm like, oh my God, she was so nice. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, you park over there on the other side.
Yeah. So,
You get to park over there, not where not where the
and
crew is.
and why do you think this show is so different? Because I could tell, we talked about Dallas, but Taylor Sheridan, he said he read Larry McMurtry novels. And he said that his favorite Western was The Unforgiven, and outlawed Josie Wells. He's kind of got an old school style to him. Like, he's no bullshit,
Yeah.
and I like this style he has, because the real men at that ranch run the show. And I like the bunkhouse. Can you tell us something about the bunkhouse with Lloyd? Is Lloyd a real actor, or is he a cowboy? What is he? What?
He's a cowboy, but he's been an actor and like stunt guy growing up,
Yeah,
kind of growing up.
yeah.
But yeah, Lloyd fits the part. It's perfect for him. And
I
he's
love
such,
that guy.
again,
Yeah,
I think the show is so successful as the great writing, the great directing, and then everybody works together. There's nobody that, even the producers, everyone was so nice on that show.
can you explain? Does Costner, is he a good administrator? I bet he is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah. He keeps the peace, through,
yeah,
and if you have a question or something, or there, if you're out of hand, he'll tell you, if there's and be ready when you're filming, because he's ready when you come on set,
yeah.
you know. So I think it keeps everybody on their toes. He's definitely the patriarch of not only the show, but also behind the scenes.
What about Jamie, the Tom Hagen, the lawyer, the adopted? I shouldn't say that, because I'll give away
Here we
another
go, blowing
spoiler.
it
Oh,
again.
sorry, I didn't say that. No, don't watch it. Just don't listen to this. Okay, but
There are
what a
some
great
spoiler alert.
what a great story. In season 3, I just said, man, this is really good. It is just like The Godfather. It's just like Dallas. It's just like Larry McMurtry. It's like HUD. The My favorite Paul Newman movie is HUD,
Oh,
and I can tell this modern westerns. He got everything right, and I really enjoyed the show. So thank you for letting us in on the backstory to that. Any other good stories from that show that you can share with us?
oh yeah, put me on the spot now.
Okay. Well, okay. Who's not
Think of
nice
some
on the
other
show?
things.
Is there
Yeah,
anybody
right.
not nice on the show? No, it's okay. Yeah. So, and why do you think this show works so well? Because I think it just is a really amazing show, and nobody has ever heard of it that I talked to. Everyone's saying what, and I just think it's really a great television show. Yeah.
It is. Well, and also like my nieces out in Maryland, they watch it. And so I'm surprised who watches it as
Yeah.
well, and who it
Yeah.
sucks in, because you're like, oh, I never even thought you would like that, but they love it. If
Yeah.
you watch it, you end up loving it.
You know
It's
what
just
my
such a good combination of
you know
everything
what
we need.
You know what my favorite part about that show, and I was trying to tell my sister about this, is she says, "What is that show? I've never heard of it." And I said, "Because it's such a positive message. I like the character of Jimmy, who is like this loser meth head, and that's like every guy I knew in West Virginia, or at least I played in a billiard league in the bars with West Virginia. I'd see these guys all the time." And tell us about this character, because I think it's the most positive character I've seen in television in years. And can you tell us about this character? He's a meth addict, right?
Yep. And then he got a second chance, basically working for the Yellowstone farm.
And
And
why the ranch, and why does he get a second chance? Because there's a brand involved, and
yeah,
yeah,
but I think was Rip was involved in getting him out of there,
Rip
right? It was
branded him,
him.
right? And
Yep.
they said, he says, there's a great scene there where Rip knocks on the door and he says, "You Jimmy?" And he kind of looks at him and he goes, "Are you alone?" And he goes, "I'll take that as a yes." And then he brands him, and it changes his life because he has to go to work and he has to do work, hard work, demeaning work, but it changes his life. And I think it's kind of like a Captain's Courageous story, the Kipling novel, where sometimes it just depends on your environment. And I think Jimmy is a great role model for that. You could change your life if you really put your mind to it. And it's a great character. He ends up being kind of a rodeo guy, and I just love that character. I love the positive message of this TV series. I think Costner did a great job, and Sheridan did a great job, and so thank you guys all for putting something positive on TV when we need it. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the about farming too, and how, how they're being taken over by the real estate
Oh,
developer,
the
and
inheritance
how they're
tax.
bringing it all in.
It's so ruthless. This it's not only those of you who haven't seen it. It's not only a show about cowboys and ranchers. It's a show about what's threatening them. And I love that line where the Indian, the Native American character says, "Now you know how we felt." But when we
Took
got our
over our
land
land.
taken. Yeah, and it was really great writing. It's really fantastic. So it's great. So okay, Mimi, anything you want to add before we go? It's been great having you. Great seeing you again. It's been a long time. So and
Long time, huh? So no,
yeah,
this has been fun. Thanks.
is that
I
your
wish.
house there? Is that your house there? And are you in Salt Lake?
Yep, Salt Lake City, Utah. It's beautiful today. Blue skies, blue sky day.
I went to Salt Lake in 1982 and I played in a basketball tournament and we beat East High from Salt Lake City. And you told me that your boy just graduated from there. Is that right?
No, he's going to school there now. He's a junior, and he played on the basketball team for the first 2 years, and now he's just focusing on golf and lacrosse is his sports now.
Well, those are good, safe
He didn't get
sports.
tall enough. He didn't get tall enough, so
How tall?
he
How
dropped
tall
out.
is your boy? Yeah,
He's 6 foot. This one's 6 foot.
that's good height. So
It
okay.
is. It is.
Well, Mimi, I'm going to say goodbye and great seeing you. And boy, I can't tell you, really nice to talk to you. So we'll talk soon. Okay.
I hope so. I hope so. This has been fun.
All
Thanks.
right. The great Mimi Davis on the H frame. Okay. Thank you, Mimi.
Woo-hoo.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.